Hello and welcome to Microsoft Mechanics Live. Coming up, we're going to take a look at zero-touch deployment and modern management on Microsoft 365 with Microsoft Surface. We're going to show you how Surface provides the first and best experience for first-run user provisioning and ongoing device driver and firmware management. We're going to make this real also by taking a look at the experience with Windows Autopilot for both the end user and how you can easily customize setup for your users for general use or even as a kiosk. And we're going to show you how you can continue to use existing tools like Config Manager for ongoing management with cloud attached to get modern management benefits using Microsoft Intune. To do that, I'm going to be joined by Mr. Sean McLaren. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right, Sean. So we know that Surface is really awesome hardware. You know, we can tell that there's a lot of the untold story, a lot of work that we've done to make sure this is really a nice manageable device across the lifecycle from really first run when a user receives the device to the first time, you know, that they're actually getting the device set up, and also keeping the devices up to date. Even if you want to reassign devices to other users or retire them, what are the things that we've done here to make Surface a unique device?
So from the minute you unbox the Surface, first impressions count. So we want to ensure that first run experience is great. So we look at every aspect of owning a Surface. As new capabilities come online, we ensure that Surface is on the bleeding edge of modern device management. We've worked very closely with the Windows team to implement modern manageability features in Microsoft 365, including delivering our firmware through Windows Update for Business. And also, we continue to drive new advancements in Microsoft Intune.
Right, so traditionally then, IT, from a provisioning standpoint, usually will take the devices into inventory. I did used to do this all the time, actually, for a living, day by day. You unbox them, you reimage them, you repackage them, you maybe put some notes in the box, send them back out, manage all the logistics, manage all the phone calls when they don't arrive. How does it get easier now with Surface?
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. I mean, that can be a very time-consuming and costly process.
Right.
So maintaining desktop images alone can be a full-time job. So to solve for that, Surface was the first OEM to leverage Windows Autopilot and zero-touch provisioning to do full lifecycle management. If you're not familiar with Windows Autopilot, when you purchase a Surface, your reseller or distributor can automatically register the device on your behalf to your Azure AD tenant as part of the order or fulfillment process. This registration then allows IT administrators to configure Autopilot profiles that can automatically be applied to those devices. So that way we can get the device delivered directly to an end user, and all they have to do is power the device on, connect to a network, enter their organization credentials, and the device will be provisioned into a fully business-ready state, secured and managed with all the apps that they need to be productive. So to show you what that looks like, Jeremy, why don't you power on a new Surface Pro, and we'll walk through that at first run and how we enable the experience for users and IT.
All right, so let's see if I can do this. I've been used to using things like DISM and Config Manager, the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. I'm going to try to set this device up just by hand here. Let's see if I can do it. So here I've got my start reach. I've just set up the machine. I've turned the power on, so it's gotten to that point in setup. I'm in Ubi. I hit yes on the keyboard here. Is this the right language and keyboard? I'm going to skip the second keyboard. I've only got the one attached, so I'll go ahead and hit skip. And now, one thing to note here is that this device is actually attached to a hardwire connection, so I don't have to, in this case, connect to a wireless network. It's going to broker that connection for me, so now it can continue to run. And we're going to let that continue to run here so you can see what happens as it progresses as we talk about some of the things that you can do then after you've started to set up, after you've set this up.
So what you saw in that simple process is that we basically don't want to ask the user any questions that they don't know the answers to, so we simplify that as much as we can. To provide a great user experience, often IT will include a letter welcoming the user to their new device. That letter can actually be kitted with a device by most resellers, and it can include some simple instructions, organizational specific information or something that user might need to personalize that experience a little more and help them get their device up and running.
And I just basically had to sign in with my organization credentials. Now the device is able to start provisioning, but while this provisions out, why don't we talk about all the different experiences really that light up as part of the Surface device experience?
Yeah, so one of the great things about Surface is that it lights up everything that Windows has to offer. So even as a user goes through the out-of-the-box experience or Ubi, they can use touch or voice to guide that setup. So deploying Surface to your users is really giving them all of the capabilities that they need to be productive and secure, and it provides that best Microsoft 365 experience. Since all of our devices support a touchscreen, with a digitizer and palm detection and inking support with the Surface Pen. You get that best writing experience. We have biometric authentication on all of our devices with the infrared camera through Windows Hello for Business, which allows us to help security get rid of passwords, keeping ourselves a little more secure, but it also provides an exceptional user experience as they come into Windows. We even support new ways of interacting with things like Surface Dial. The best part about Windows Autopilot deployment using a Pro OEM image like this is that all the drivers are in the box, so everything just works when they get the device.
And some of the things that we can do in terms of shipping this, we can also, for example, pack in a welcome letter or do something as part of this process as well, so that as the user unpacks or unboxes this device, in my case, I knew that I had to hit a couple of buttons to get past the first few clicks. I knew I had to enter my email address, but these are things that I can actually do as part of the fulfillment process, right?
Yeah, often that letter will also include things about what the user experience is going to be like when the device starts the provision, what they can expect, how they can expect to get their apps delivered to them, maybe an introduction to things like stored, where you can go get things on demand while you're waiting. So
now this is a brand new screen here as part of Autopilot. If you started using it earlier on, this actually gives the user a nice progress view in terms of everything that's happening. Here we can see that we've gone through device preparation, device setup. Now it's actually setting up my account, and this means it's actually going to start applying the policies, brokering the connection as part of the enrollment into Intune and getting all that stuff configured, right?
that's correct. So we're setting up your device right now. All of our corporate security policies and applications are coming down onto that device. And so you will be hitting your desktop with a fully provisioned business-ready device.
So this usually takes somewhere, how long does it normally take for it to set up?
A couple minutes usually, depends on how much stuff you're pushing down to the device.
Right. So we've set this device up, I think, to do a few things in advance. We're going to show you how all that's done. But basically, one of the cool things that we can do here, and we'll show you in a second how that works, is you can use, in this case, we'll use Intune to not only push down a couple custom line of business apps, we'll also push down the policies that we need on the device. We can push down CCM exec on this machine so that it will also be co-managed, so I can also opt in to do some of the stuff from Configuration Manager, maybe that's unique to that platform, as well as have it part of Azure AD, so I can take advantages of things like maybe conditional access, for example, as well as Intune and some of the things that we'll show you in a minute on the IT experience as this thing, as this Surface Pro starts to get to the point of where it's ready to sign in for the first time, and that's just going to happen once this last step is done.
Correct.
And why don't you show some of the basic things that you can do here? We'll leave. I'll come back to this machine when it's done cooking, and then when it's out, we'll show what the user experience looks like after it's been customized.
Absolutely. So what we're looking at here is our IT administrator's view within Intune, and I'm looking at the actual Autopilot profile configuration. So this is where we get to tell that machine to skip the end user licensing agreement, the privacy settings, all those things that we're going to policy onto this machine. From there, we apply that profile to machines that are registered to our organization. So in this view, I'm looking at devices that are registered to my organization. You notice each device has what's called a deployment group assigned to it. So this is where we can put things like that order ID or that PO number and dynamically assign to them. So what I have here is actually a dynamic group which is looking for that order ID. So this query allows me to take any device that's brought in underneath that PO number or that order number, and it automatically gets assigned a group and a profile, and I can basically do bulk assignments automatically without having to do each one manually.
And it looks like my device is at the next stage, so why don't we flip back over to my device here, and we'll show you, in this case, we've actually set up policy to enroll it into Windows Hello, so I'm going to go ahead and set that up. So I'm going to click Setup, and here we're going to see, it's going to look for my facial recognition. Hopefully it works. Let me see if I can get it to not recognize me back there. It did. Good job. Now I'll set up a PIN for the device.
Ah, you're getting prompted for MFA.
Oh, that's right. Getting prompted for another factor of authentication.
Best practice, use multi-factor authentication, even on device provision.
System. Please press the pound key to finish your verification. Your sign-in was successfully.
So you can see it even worked with multi-factor authentication. Not bad. All right, now let's give it a new PIN.
So Jeremy now has to enter a PIN, and actually he's getting one of our first policies because our PIN policy has now been applied to his machine as well.
There we go. And now the nice thing is, now we don't have to, like, after setup is complete, go in and do all this provisioning. It's just part of that first run experience. So it's not a policy that you enable maybe a day or a week after that. machine's been provisioned. You can see we're all set.
We're officially all set.
We're going to go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to take a little tour of everything that's on the device here, because we can see a couple of things. First off, if we go into, let's say, our settings, Windows settings, we're going to go into accounts. And just to see what we've got here, we're going to look at our Access Work and School. And here we can see that we're already connected to our Azure AD account. So I'm Azure AD joined already. And if I go into Info, we'll see all the different things that have started. So policies have started to come down. You can see all the policies that hit this machine. And you can see I've even got CCM exec set up on this computer. So we've got Config Manager already in the place where it can start managing the device. So not too bad. Now check this out. This is my favorite part. I spent so many years saying you should provision your users to be standard users, not local admins. Watch this. If I go into Windows key X and I hit PowerShell, even though I'm the first user on this device and I want to get, I'm basically normally as a Windows setup in Ubi, I'm going to provision that first user to be a local admin. Here I'm a standard user, so I can't get myself in trouble after I've set this device up. So how cool is that?
I don't know who had a stopwatch on us during that, but that was a full provision live demo, and you are co-managed.
Yes, I'm completely managed. I'm completely at policy, and I've got all the apps that I need. In this case, I've got Office installed. You can see I've got Software Center here from Config Manager. Of course, I can go into Company Portal and grab things from Intune, but all that stuff is already for me to go on this device. So,
and probably most important to all the IT people in the audience, we pulled Candy Crush out of that provision.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right, so let's keep going on the IT side.
All right. So next, what does it take to make that happen? Well, first of all, we assign our users a license for Microsoft 365. What that allows us to do is uplift that device to Windows Enterprise during the provision. It allows me to put Office Pro Plus onto that device. It also allows us to secure our corporate data and corporate identities with our Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite. And it also allows us to fully manage that device with Microsoft Intune. So the next thing is we're pushing policies and restrictions onto that device. Here's an example of that custom start menu that you saw when Jeremy hit the start button. But we can also do things like our networking and proxy settings. We can configure printers. We can configure reporting and telemetry settings. Just about everything and all the granularity that IT expects managing a PC, we can all do directly from the cloud using Microsoft Intune. As you would also expect, we can actually provision and enable all of the advanced security features within Windows 10. So here we have Windows Defender Application Guard, but I can also do things on the firewall, the Smart Screen, BitLocker for disk encryption, Exploit Guard, App Control, etc. So I've got very good control over that device and can provision those security settings as we go. The other thing that I can do is I can actually use conditional access to watch the health of that device and not let it connect to any corporate resources until I know that that device is in a healthy state.
One of the new policies, actually it's in preview now, is to know that that machine's under management before you actually allow it to connect to resources. So one thing that you can do, one of the nice things with conditional access in general, is we can start to reduce the amount of login prompts that users see. So now this is a trusted device, so I might not be prompted for that second factor every single time I use the device. Yeah, but here I'm using Windows Hello anyway, so it's kind of a two-factor auth anyway.
That's correct.
So some of the other things that we can do in terms
onboarding that machine for Windows ATP, being able to get security eyes on that device within seconds of it coming to life. You can also onboard for Windows Analytics to get that operational view to help us with servicing and ongoing maintenance.
And also to track the health of the device, if there are any application crashes, any of those things, Analytics will give us that detail right away because it's all been brokered into that join.
Correct, and all these things are cloud services, so they just work, they're already enabled, there's no on-prem infrastructure requirements at all.
And we can enforce application install using, here we're going to show the Microsoft Store for Business, for example, but because we have Config Manager, we can install MSI, Win32, even Bootstrapper executable-based apps. All those things we can do either via Config Manager or via Intune and Store for Business like you're showing here.
Correct. So for our modern applications, we leverage Store for Business. So this allows me to pull in my UWP applications, even curate applications from the consumer store. It also allows me to invite developers from my organization or even third parties to publish apps into my store, and then they'll go through an approval process and I can deploy those to my users. I can also sync the Store for Business to Microsoft Intune so that I can deploy and manage all of my apps from one place. So this allows me to do application assignments and deployments for anything from our modern applications to our MSI-based applications and Win32 apps. To make it even easier to deploy Office 365 Pro Plus onto our clients, we have a series of checkboxes to decide which application that I want to put down. And then in the application settings, I can even decide how I want Office to be serviced, all directly from within Intune.
Right, this is all stuff that's native in there. I can determine bitness, I can determine app exclusions if I want to. All of the components that are going to go onto the machine that would have traditionally been part of the Office deployment tool and the XML creation process that you would have used there, I can either do it in Intune, as we see here, or I can do that in Config Manager as well.
That's correct.
And also one of the cool things, in addition to the Office bits that we're showing, is post-installation servicing, as you mentioned, Sean. We can also do things like Windows Update for Business policies as part of all of the provision that we're doing here, and use things like delivery optimization. So we saw the Store for Business. Not only Store for Business, but also feature updates can use that, basically the peer-to-peer caching capability to where all the clients, say on a subnet, will be able to get that first app, or the one or two of those clients might be able to get the app packages or the update packages and distribute it out to the rest of the peers. And then because Surface devices are also native UEFI devices that have really fast solid-state drives, feature updates in most cases are up to 60% faster than a lot of the devices that people use every day now. The nice thing is the Surface team also has thought through the entire lifecycle. So we've even got tools, for example, on the Surface side to do secure disk deletion effectively if you're going to give your machines up for PC recycle to make sure that all the data, all the binaries on that machine have been completely removed so that you can feel good about handing that off to recycle. And I know that we've added even more capabilities with Windows Autopilot and to Surface with the Surface Go. So we've got this guy up here. Let's show what's new about Surface Go, and let's show what's new in terms of the device with, it's got an NFC sensor, for example, as you can see in the graphic here. Now it has the ability to read RFID tags and really do some cool things. So why don't you show us what that experience looks like using Surface Go?
Absolutely. So what I have here on my Surface Go is a learning kiosk application. So this application is going to leverage the built-in NFC reader to let a user into the application with a tap of a badge. And I'm also going to leverage the Windows Autopilot self-deploy profiles to provision this as a kiosk. So as you can see on my landing page, when this device gets provisioned and drops, all it requires is that a user would take their badge, tap it to log in. So using that reader, we grab the ID off the badge. We use the Microsoft Graph API to log them into their learning session, and they're in. So as a learning kiosk that you would expect, we do have a browser that can go to a learning portal, but we added a few more things here to take advantage of some of the other device features. So a learner might want to take handwritten notes, or in this case, they might want to sign their little HR agreement so that they get paid. So I'm able to actually sign that agreement and hit accept using the Surface Pen. Is another great experience. The other thing we did as a little simple workflow just to leverage the camera in the device is we allow our user here to request a new badge so they can come in and use the camera to take their picture.
It's trying to process if you're a human.
It is.
Was the face detected? It's using AI in this case, right?
It is. We're actually making a call to the Azure Cognitive Services to see if we detect
Let's see
the
if you are indeed human. That would require us to have a network connection and everything. So let's see how this goes, because I've seen
it would. So it did. It was just a little slow. But that allows us to leverage several capabilities of this great little device, provision it as a kiosk, and use the NFC card to make it simple for our users.
Cool stuff, cool stuff. So it actually has a good purpose. It could even be used here for like doing evaluations or other things, maybe even at an event like this. So very cool stuff. So we won't get into the coding aspect of the app, but how did you set that up to be installed? Because I want to back you up for a second. You said this will self-provision. It'll deploy itself without any user interaction. All I have to do is basically turn it on and connect it to a network, and it fires up in this mode, loads the app, and now you can start using it in this case as like a learning app.
That is right. So one of the things that's in preview today that we're shipping this fall is Windows Autopilot self-deploy. So what we have here is a configuration profile for self-deploy. This is very much like the other configuration profile that we did, except notice the type of this profile is actually self-deploying. So what that means is when this device is sent somewhere, it's plugged into power and it gets an internet connection, it will deploy itself. In an Autopilot configuration profile for self-deploy, we can actually specify the language. So if you put that on a dock or you plug it into a network cable, it is true zero-touch provisioning. The device will power on and provision itself.
Very cool. So one other thing I wanted to explain too is that now that you've got a couple of devices that have been provisioned, the steps that would have to be done in advance of that would be to work with your partner. So the partner center actually has the ability to effectively set the hardware IDs that these devices all uniquely have and apply those to your Azure AD tenant, effectively your tenant that's going to be used for Intune and for the Windows Autopilot service, so that handshake is made between those two services. We've got some new capabilities, though, here in terms of being able to also segment those based on user populations, so you can have customized deployment profiles per department as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And if the reseller registers those devices, again, with that unique ID, we actually create a dynamic query looking for those devices, and those policies will get automatically applied.
And that's nice, because if say, if that device got stolen or was maybe lost or was left in the backseat of a taxi cab or any of those things, once the next user reprovisions it or turns it on, you can wipe it, let's say, for example, and they think, aha, it's been wiped, I can then boot it back up and install a fresh I can reset the Windows image on it. It's going to know that that belonged to Contoso or whatever the organization is and say, no, you can't run that until I release it or unlock it from my environment.
That's correct. So actually, when you're going to recycle your PCs, you need to unregister them so that someone else could use it.
Right.
Otherwise, they will be locked to your tenant. But we can also retain the enrollment state and the management on that reset.
Oh,
so if you're resetting a device because I want to retask it to another user, or there's just something wrong with it that it needs a reset, we can do that and maintain the management as well.
So can you show us how I would do the differentiated kind of department level configs within the Autopilot deployment profile setup?
So for what I'm looking at here is actually the application configurations to configure that as a kiosk. So in this particular configuration, what I've done is I've published that application into my private store. As a line of business app developer, I've assigned it to the device, and then here I'm actually telling it that this is a kiosk type app to go ahead and run it in assigned access mode. That's the only other step to configure that particular device.
Got it.
So then it's just the groups that they're assigned to.
Yep.
And that group would drive which profile or which
just using basic dynamic groups inside of Azure AD. So
absolutely.
Really cool set of capabilities. Everybody like what they saw so far with Autopilot. And of course, the hero here, Surface devices being on the bleeding edge of provisioning. What about Surface? All right. Cool. No need to reimage devices out of the box. You can just provision them. Where would you recommend people go to learn more?
So the best resource for everything we've shown today is the Windows Autopilot for Microsoft Surface page at the link that's shown.
Thanks, Sean. And of course, keep watching Microsoft Mechanics. We'll continue following Surface and Windows Autopilot. That's all the time we have for this show. Follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube. See you next time.